2 grows ago, I had severe like newt lockout. I couldn't figure what was going on. I was trying all these different things. It was showing all these different signs. So I was chasing my tail for what felt like ever. As you go, I think new things come up, and really I find the only way I'm learning from them is to have it happen and to experience it yourself. And then you're like, okay, this is what's going on right now. This is what it's going to look like. And then, you know, in the future, once you see that sign or symptom again, you're like, oh my God, I've seen this before. I know what to do. There's going to be issues, so just chill, take your time, read. My pH in my medium was way off, and obviously it's something I should have been doing more often, or at least more frequent, because it would have solved my issue right away. When you do it yourself and master what you've got going on, or fix one of your issues, it's so rewarding.
What's up, everybody? If you that don't know me, my name is Chris, aka Mr. Grow It, and this is Garden Talk, episode 7. This episode's guest goes by the name Zerp84. He is an indoor gardener that has been growing plants for a little over 3 years now. In this episode, we talk about his style of growing and what he does to be successful in his garden. We also learn about some of the mistakes that he's done in the past, and he mentions several things that will help beginner gardeners. This information may be especially helpful for those of you who are brand new to gardening or who just have a few years under your belt. If you're watching this on YouTube, please click that thumbs up button. And if you're listening on one of the podcast platforms, please leave a rating and review. That being said, let's just get into it. All right, welcome, Zerp84. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Nice. Thanks for coming on to the show. We've been talking for a little while now, huh? It's been over a year now since we've been kind of going back and forth through DMs and stuff. And
yeah, I think we've chatted through messages for probably about a year, but way back when I started, and I was pretty new to this, I was actually very surprised because I asked some questions to you early on in the game for me, and you responded super quickly, which I wasn't expecting, because I mean, you're who you are in this space, right? And I was fresh and new, and I wasn't expecting it to happen, but I really appreciated it. But yeah, you answered a lot of questions for me in my early stages of growing. So
nice.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that. That's cool. Okay, so for those that don't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into growing?
Yeah, I go by Zerp84, obviously on YouTube and Instagram. But first and foremost, I am a father of 3 little boys and a husband who still works a full-time career with the Canadian military. So my time is consumed mostly by that and my children. But my spare time and my favorite hobby is to grow plants, obviously, which is why I'm on this show with you. I got into growing roughly 3 years ago. I obviously, when I was a kid and teenager and a skateboarder, I did smoke a little bit. But I joined the military at an early age at 16, so obviously I couldn't smoke throughout my career in the military. But recently in Canada, about 2 to 3 years ago, it was legalized. So even in the forces, you're allowed to use or to smoke. So I got back into it. I do have like multiple injuries just throughout my body from being in the military for so long, and also some mental health stuff going on too. And once they legalized it, I hopped back into it because I knew the benefits that I could provide just for injuries and for mental health. And personally, the actual growing experience itself is very therapeutic for me too, let alone the product at the end, which seems to help with my mental health issues even more. But yeah, I hopped back into it. In Canada, you're allowed to grow 4 plants legally per household. I went through the whole process of applying to get a license through the ACMPR process, and I obviously got a license to grow more than that just to help me with what I've got going on and for my wife as well. And so yeah, here we are today. I grow in a small tent in my garage right now. Since they legalized it, I sleep like a baby now, and it's helped a lot of other things for me too. So I couldn't be happier that it's been legalized up here and that we're able to grow it and consume it while in the forces still up here. So yeah.
So you also have a YouTube channel, right? That's how I kind of know about you, is you launched a YouTube channel. You were asking me for advice or DMs at some point, and checked out your channel. You definitely have some good videos. You like to explain things a little bit in detail about your style of what you do. And you also have a little character on the side there, right? The macho man.
Pot grow man.
Pot grow man?
Yeah. Yeah, I like to, that's fun too, right? Like I like to make the videos. Obviously I don't have a lot of followers or subscribers, but it's good to pass on knowledge that I'm learning from you, from other growers in the space that have been around for a while, and just put it out there, because whoever watches it is looking for information and looking for tips. And if there's a way to make it easier for them, then I mean, it's beneficial for everybody, right? So that's what I like to do. It's kind of fun, and my alter ego kind of got me going at the beginning. I just thought it was funny, a little play on words, and the character I use as my my profile pic on Instagram being Pacro, man. It's just, it's funny. It's a throwback. So yeah, lots of fun.
That's funny. I just recently talked with Welcome to the Grow Tent. I'm not sure if you know who he is. He has like a Ric Flair. He goes up to woo personality in his videos and on his live stream and stuff. So it's kind of funny. Maybe we need to link up Pot Grow Man with Ric Flair. Get you guys in on the same video. That'd be funny. Okay, you mentioned that you're a small home grower at this point. You just have one tent. What would you consider like your goal is? Do you like go for yield? Do you grow a variety of different strains, or what is your style or goals when growing?
I think probably, I mean, everybody would like to start a grow with the end goal of being a huge yield. But for me, the goal is just to be self-sufficient, right? Like to provide, I guess, medicine for myself without having to pay a ridiculous price from a government store to get it up here. So just remaining self-sufficient and not having to spend money on it, but also, like I said, the actual process of it and the habit of growing is therapeutic as well. So the goal is to just have hopefully a stress-free, like minimize the issues and just have from start to finish, a good grow and provide myself with a couple months of product to get me through to the next grow.
Probably save a bunch of money doing it that way, huh?
Sure, yeah. It costs quite a bit from the government stores. Since they regulated it, they can charge what they want to charge, right? And it's expensive to go to one of the stores and actually purchase from them. So it's definitely ideal. Every household can grow. So if you're using or smoking, it saves a lot of money if you want to grow it yourself.
Gotcha. So let's start with IPM, Integrated Pest Management. So is there anything that you do in order to prevent pests?
I haven't had too many issues with pests, but I do use the sticky paper, and I have come into a problem of mites at one point, which I was scrambling because I had nothing on hand to deal with it. And I simply just ordered an organic spray, obviously not to damage or introduce anything foreign to the plants either, to try and get rid of the mites, which seemed to handle it pretty quick. I can't remember the name of it offhand. It was just, I just quickly searched it online and bought it off. Yeah, and it was just the fact that it was organic and it dealt with the issue I was having being mites, and it did the job. But those are the only two things I've really done for pest control, and simply because I had to, right? I've only experienced mites once, and then just the flies get bad in the summer here, so put the sticky paper down and it gets rid of them as well.
How far were the mites? Did you catch them like in the veg stage, or were you in the flower stage? And you're talking about spider mites, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was actually away with the military, and my wife passed the information on to me. So it's it's harder for me to grow too, because whenever there's an issue, like I was away a lot, probably half of each month or close to half of each month I was away in my last job. But so a lot of the issues fell on her, which obviously I love her and appreciate everything she does, because she holds it down when I'm gone. But she recognized it, just the fact that she noticed a web in the upper part of one of the plants, and then when she looked a little closer, it was in multiple plants, and obviously they had gone progressed pretty bad because they were moving to all the plants and the webs were getting big. So she let me know, and I would say it was probably early on in flower when she noticed it. And it obviously, the spray and whatever they were doing to the plant stunted the growth quite a bit, and the end yield obviously was affected. But she realized it. She passed the info on. I ordered the spray. She sprayed them, and I think after it took a little while, she cut a lot of the dead veg off of it and sprayed them a few times. And I think within probably a week to 2 weeks, she had it sorted out. But yeah, that time frame really hurt the grow. But I mean, it was still salvageable and still got some stuff out of it at the end. So.
That's good that you were able to salvage it. I know generally it's recommended not to spray in the flowering stage, but you were able to still do it and be able to salvage it. So that's good to hear for sure. So you said you were in a small grow tent. What size grow tent are you in, and what light do you currently have running, or lights?
I'm in a 5x5 right now.
5x5, okay.
5x5, and I've got an SP3000 and a TS3000, both by Mars, in there right now.
Nice. They actually just sent me the SP 6500, which is very similar to the SP 3000. But there are some differences. I'm not sure if they hit you up and talked to you about that one yet, because I know you're sponsored by them, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yep. Okay. Cool.
yeah. Sponsored by them. But I like overall, I've been growing with their lights now for probably about a year, and I can't complain, man. I mean, what they're giving me is great products, and the outcome it has been good as well. So no issues yet.
So in your 5x5, how many plants do you typically run, and what size grow pots do you typically use?
I kind of go back and forth between autos and photos. So 5x5, if I was running photos, I'd have probably four in there, four or five. And for the photos, actually, to start off for photos and autos, I germ in solo cups. If I had the space and the ability to put them in their permanent pots as autos, obviously I would, so that I would have to cause a lot of less stress transplanting them, right, for autos because of the lifespan. But yeah, I start off in solos. I go to 3 gallon for the photos, and then I'll transplant again from 3 to either 5 or bigger, depending on what time of year and if I'm going to put any outside. But for the tent, I usually don't go bigger than 5 just to save space, so I can move around in there with them and give them the space they need as well. And for autos from solo cups, I just put them in 3 gallons, and that's where they stay for the rest of the grow. For like I said, for photos, I'll probably put 5 in there for the 5x5, and right now for autos I have 8 in there.
Gotcha. Do you primarily use the plastic pots, fabric pots, air pots?
I go from solos, and I have both actually, and it kind of depending on if I've just finished a grow and I'm going to new pots, just kind of availability, if I've cleaned them out well enough, if there's still medium left in them. But I use fabric and plastic. Right now my grows are, the current grow is all in plastic, but I do prefer fabric. It was just the fact that I'd obviously just harvested a crop and still had a bunch of stuff left in the fabrics and wanted to get these plants back into pots. So I threw them into 3 gallon plastics right away.
Gotcha. And you said you also do outdoor growing too, huh?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. How many plants do you typically run outdoors?
So for outdoors, I only had the 4 last year, and I had those in 10 gallon.
Oh, nice. Nice. So bigger pot size, bigger plant, so on and so forth.
I had them in 10 gallon fabrics outside, and they actually did really well. They got quite large. So yeah.
Are you in soil, coco coir? What's in your mix?
I'm in soil, and currently I run a ProMix HP mycorrhizae with probably about 80%, and then 20% of the medium I make up just of it's Grow 4 worm castings. Yeah, but prior to that, I was in about probably 20% Fox Farm, 10% worm castings, and then 70% NutriPlus.
Okay, nice. Now, what do you use for nutrients?
I've tried a few different companies. Currently, I'm using General Hydroponics with their Grow Bloom Micro, as well as their Cool Bloom for flower, and their CalMag as well. I also have some bud juice, like dry or nitro, to throw in on top of the soil, and mix it in if there's any nitro deficiencies. Yeah, and that's it right now.
So your initial mix of the Pro Mix and then the compost, your particular mix, how long does that last you until you actually need to start feeding those nutrients in?
I usually just pH'd water. I use pH'd water for, I guess, depending on autos and photos, but pH'd water for, I'll say, autos for probably the first 3 to 4 weeks. And then I start adding the nutrients slowly, obviously. And I usually don't even give the recommended dose of nutrients. I usually give half of what they recommend. I found, obviously, early on in growing, I was given what I recommended and having more issues than I seem to run into now. But I find just giving them half of the recommended doses has been working great for me right now. So, yeah. And then obviously adding the Cool Bloom or whatever bud booster or flower booster you want to add at the end of your grow. I just start doing it in probably the last month of flower. Yeah.
So you are using their feeding chart. So you're going by their feeding chart, but you're doing a half dose instead. Now, are you doing it, is it like an every other? Do you water and then feed the next time around, and then water and then feed the next time around, which is kind of a common practice?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. So I'll water it out. like get it obviously so that it's the whole pot, all the medium gets moist. Just pH tap water is what I use, and then every second feeding, I'll add nutrients to it.
Does your tap water that you used, do you have to let it dechlorinate? I know every area is kind of different. Some areas have chlorine in it, some have chloramine in it. Does your local water have that? And do you have to let it sit out or anything? Or
I just right out of the tap, I fill up my container and add my nutrients and just pH it right there. What I usually out of the tap after the nutrients are added, I'm sitting at about 7 for pH. And I just bring it down to like 5.8, 5.96 in that range. And I've had no issues so far. I'm pretty new to this area. I just moved here about 6 months ago. So far, so good with the tap water.
Gotcha. And so are you just pH adjusting your nutrients and then giving to your plant? Do you also monitor the pH of like the runoff or a slurry test or anything like that, or just going in?
So it sounds terrible, but the only time I really pH runoff is if I'm actually have an issue that I see, or an issue arises, then I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? And 2 grows ago, I had severe like newt lockout. I couldn't figure what was going on. I was trying all these different things. It was showing all these different signs. So I was chasing my tail for what felt like ever. And then when I finally pH'd my runoff, I realized that my pH in my medium was way off. And obviously it's something I should have been doing more often, or at least more frequent, because it would have solved my issue right away and probably salvaged more of that grow for me. But I do every so often now check it. Not necessarily when there's an issue, but not as frequent as I should. And that's probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned in growing. Like I read a lot of material, obviously, but I don't have the ability to like read all this material and process it and pull out all these different things. Like I'm more of a trial by fire type of learner. And I find like if you've messed something up that's been going on for a month or 2, or you've ruined a grow or whatever, this or that, it leaves a lasting impression and you won't make that same mistake again. Right. So it's kind of how I've been rolling. And the newt lockout was a major one because I had a beautiful grow going and it just destroyed it. And it took me, I want to say, weeks to figure out what was going on, but it was the pH in the medium. And had I tested the runoff early on, I would have been aware of that. But you live and you learn, and I won't make the same mistake again. And if I have an issue now, it's one of the first things I check. So
that makes sense. So the CalMag, do you feed CalMag every time, or do you go along with every other and mix it in with the nutrients, the base nutrients that you use?
I used to just feed it if I recognize an issue, but recently in the last 2 grows, I've been doing it every second feeding, like you said. So we water in between, and then every time I actually give nutrients, I give it a little bit of CalMag as well. But I don't give the same thing, not even near the recommended dose, not even half. I usually give like a quarter of what it's recommending, just so it's in there. But I don't wait for deficiencies or wait to see anything, any signs of anything. I give it a little bit with every feeding.
What brand CalMag?
I'm with General Hydroponics for that.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Gotcha. Now, what about like ppm or EC values? Do you monitor those at all?
So I know we were chatting earlier about it, but I don't really monitor ppm anymore, and no specific reason other than I don't have a meter right now. I was reading it and checking it frequently, but my meter went down, and I'm not doing it as of right now. For EC, I have never checked it or monitored it, and obviously and actually didn't even really know what it was until recently when I did some research on it, just because you had touched on it with me previously. So no, I don't monitor EC or ppm right now. Something I should do because I do run CO2 as well.
You're mostly just kind of reading the plant, seeing how the plant looks, and I mean, you said you've got several years experience now, so you kind of know what to look for, and then you're kind of going by that in a sense.
Yeah, so reading the plant and reading the medium as well. Not as often as I said, but I find it just through experience, and I'm very early on here and still an amateur in my eyes because there's so much to learn and you can always improve. But just looking at the plant, looking for signs of different things is kind of how I've been rolling, and it's been working so far for the last grow. So as you go, I think new things come up, and really, I find the only way I'm learning from them is to have it happen and to experience it yourself. And then you're like, okay, this is what's going on right now. This is what it's going to look like. And then, in the future, once you see that sign or symptom again, you're like, oh my God, I've seen this before. I know what to do. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yep. You get that experience. Problems are treasures.
If you could go through each grow without an issue and never have to chase your tail, never have to fix anything, I mean, please tell me how to do it. But I mean, the best way to learn is by doing it and experiencing all the things these things can throw at you. I mean, and every different strain is going to show different signs of different things, right? So it's you kind of get used to knowing what you're looking for, what the leaves are telling you, if limp branches, whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. Cool. Okay, so that's nutrients, CalMag. Now, what about additives and microbial inoculants? You said you use the liquid Cool Bloom for an additive. Do you use anything else for an additive? And then do you use any microbes?
I don't actually. No, I guess I just add the Cool Bloom. I've been debating for, I guess, kind of a different topic, but along the same lines. I've been debating for a while now, switching to an organic grow, and obviously with the dry amendments, I still haven't pulled the trigger on it because I watch a lot of growers and I envy them and I want to do it, but I know once you get it dialed in, it can be quite easy, but getting it dialed in is one thing. And the fact that I go away all the time and a lot of the problems fall into my wife's hands and she's busy. I still haven't switched, but I want to make the switch. But to get back on topic, I don't know. Microbe, yeah, I'm not using them at this point.
Gotcha. Yeah, going organics, some of the best advice I've ever got was plan ahead. You kind of need to plan ahead. So, I mean, your particular situation when you're, always traveling or whatever, it might be difficult to kind of go that route, but you can certainly get away with it. Takes a lot of research. I don't know if you were planning on going the blend. Like, I know Gaia Green is big up in your area. Gaia Green has a couple blends that you can mix in together, and then potentially add in some microbes on top of that, or so there's different amendments you can use. But yeah, I mean, planning ahead is a big piece of it because those organic amendments need time to break down, right? And if you start to see deficiencies, well, it's not like you can just top dress in and expect a quick recovery time like you can with bottled nutrients, with the plant available nutrients. So it can be tricky, but yeah, when you're ready, man, push yourself to go that organic route. I believe in you. I think you can do it.
I mean, what you see and read when things are going well organically, they're going well, right? Just you've got your amendments in there and you're adding pH water for however many weeks until you need to re-up on your amendments. But when things start going sour, they're really sour, and it takes a little bit to get it back on track. So it's if I'm home for an extended period of time, which this new position I'm in, I may make the switch and give it a try.
Now, you mentioned a little bit about CO2. You do use CO2. So what exactly, what method do you use of CO2?
So I simply use the T&B CO2 enhancer. I haven't explored the actual bottle, like buying or filling your own CO2 bottles and having it disperse on a meter or the actual exhale bags. I used the TNB CO2 enhancer, and simply because I'm sponsored by them, so they send me bottles and I use it, and the ease of it, right? It's super simple. So it's easy, and for me, it's no cost. So I'm using it, and I tell everybody that asks me about it because in my first few grows I wasn't introducing CO2 at all. But once I started using it, I noticed changes in my grows personally. So I suggest it to everybody, and not because I'm sponsored, but because the benefits you get at.
Do you hang it above the plants, or where do you put it?
Yeah, I have it hanging almost at the level of my lights, just so when it disperses, it obviously drops down into the canopy of the plants. But I mean, without an actual sealed grow environment too, I don't know. And the zippers and vents and stuff in your tents, I don't know how much of it's actually escaping because I don't have a ppm reader for the CO2 as well, right? So, I mean, it's obviously providing benefits. Could it probably provide more benefits? Yes, if I had a better environment or was tracking the ppms in there. But it's still providing enough that I notice changes in my grow.
Gotcha. I used the same TMB Naturals canisters as well. They sent me a huge box a while back, actually. It was actually pretty cool that they sent that over to me. But I've been using them just because I have them, and I know there's cheaper methods of CO2, home remedy methods that you can do for much cheaper than that. The exhale bags are arguably a cheaper method. I have hung it above my plants as well as put it like on the floor of the grow tent, like around the oscillating fan. So that's another recommendation by T&B Naturals. You can do it either way. So I've done both ways. I do have a CO2 monitor, and I have in the past monitored the ppm, and I also do exhaust once in a while. So it's not a sealed environment, which, like you had mentioned, isn't really entirely effective, right? It's much better to be in a sealed environment, sealed room. But anyways, the ppm levels I've monitored, just kind of checking on my tent randomly, it's really gotten up to 1,000, 1,200. So it's actually, it's shown to work. So, and that's with exhausting randomly as the heat kind of goes up. I have the AC Infinity fan. So once it reaches like 82, I think I'd have it set at 82 Fahrenheit, it'll exhaust that out and then it will turn off. So it's coming on intermittently. And so the CO2 is kind of being sucked out intermittently. But yeah, it does work. It does work. So I've had good success with them as well.
When I was checking ppms and I was in a 4x4 tent, I was sitting somewhere around 1,000 as well. And again, with intermittent exhausting, because the same thing, I have an AC Infinity that it comes on when it goes over 27. So Celsius, that is.
Okay. So temperature and humidity. What do you typically like to run for temperature? What do you typically like to run for humidity?
I guess depending on the stage that they're in, for obviously seedlings, I usually keep it up between 65, 70% humidity. And then in seedlings, I don't have a way to track the heat other than they're sitting on a heat mat in a dome until they get put into the tent. But until they get put into the tent, they're sitting between 65, 70% humidity. And then when they're large enough to go into the tent, obviously the dome comes off and they go in. And I like it to stay around 25 degrees Celsius. And once they're in the tent, usually between 50, 55% humidity, which is all tracked. And it fluctuates right now, my tent, because I'm in Canada. It is cold outside and my tent is in the garage. Obviously, the temperature fluctuates with whatever is doing outside because they're sitting on concrete, not directly on concrete. I obviously have them elevated in the tent. But so it'll go between 22 to 28. I have heaters in there as well as humidifiers, and so it'll go up and down as the exhausts and the heaters kick in and out. But ideally I'd like it to sit around 25. But like I said, it moves probably between 22, 23 all the way up to 28, which sometimes is beneficial too, right? If you're running CO2, you can run higher temperatures as well. So it's it works both ways. I would like it to stay steady, but it doesn't stay steady in its natural environment either, so maybe it's mimicking its natural environment. It goes up and down as the weather does. So
you're pretty automated as far as controlling your temp and humidity, it sounds like. Now, do you have like a monitor for VPD? Do you chase after a VPD or anything like that, or just kind of?
I'm currently I just have one of Inkbird's controllers just for heat and humidity. And then, like I said, I have the humidifier, obviously the AC Infinity hooked up to it, as well as a heater in the tent because of how cold it gets at night here. And they just kick on and off with the parameters that I've set in them, and they seem to maintain and hold it pretty well where I want it to be. I was telling you earlier that there's a lot of storms where I'm at because I am on a mountain here, so the power does go off, I guess, pretty frequently, maybe once every couple of weeks or once a month or something like that, just from the wind. So I find myself chasing my tail or moving plants in and out of environments to keep them warm through the night or whatever. But that's the great thing about obviously monitoring them as well, and having the apps on your phone is right away if there's an issue and you're not home, you know what's going on and you need to deal with it. So yeah.
Absolutely. It's super, super helpful. I missed the part. I'm not sure if you said what you usually run for in flowering, what you run for humidity. I mean, there's always chance of like bud rot happening, especially during the flowering stage. If your humidity is too high and you have that stagnant air and stuff like that, do you run a lower humidity in flowering? I'm not sure if you said that or not.
Flower, I like to stay around about 50%. But I've got multiple circulating fans in there as well, like one pot level blowing air, like oscillating fan blowing air across the top of the pots, and then others that are hitting the canopy as well. And I'm in there, even though I have all these things tracking it, monitoring it. I have a habit, like I'm obsessed with going in the tent, which isn't ideal either if you're running CO2. But I'm always in and out of the tent checking on them. And yeah, I look for moisture on the sides of the tents. I look for moisture on the anything, right? And if I find it, then obviously I'm opening things up or cooling things down or venting it out. But yeah, 50% is where I like to be during flower, and it seems to be working so far.
Nice. A key point that you just mentioned is you have multiple oscillating fans, right? So I actually had one oscillating fan in the tent, and this is on my channel, and it's a seed to harvest grow series that I did. I actually ended up getting bud rot because one of my fans died overnight. If there's a lack of airflow, it's definitely going to grow, to spread, right? Yeah. So it's so key. What you had mentioned is multiple sources of air circulation with the oscillating fans. So I'm glad you mentioned that one.
Especially if you just fed them, right? If you just fed them and your medium is wet throughout the plant, and then all of a sudden you lose a fan, or say the power goes out, a fan goes down, craps out on you, and then they're just sitting there with no air circulation, you'll go in there and your tent's soaked, like hours later. I mean, it's something that obviously I suggest having multiple fans. I guess the counter to that is with the multiple fans in there is the medium dries out so quick. So medium and with the heater in the tent as well up here. So I've got a heater going, multiple fans. So I find my medium is dry in the stage I'm in right now, which is late flower with my autos, and they're eating everything up you give them anyways. With the fans moving around and the heater, my medium's dry in 2-3 days.
For sure. I struggle the same way. I live in a very dry climate, and it definitely can struggle with that. Have you tried doing any mulch layers at all to kind of help with the retention, water retention in the medium?
I haven't. I've kind of been exploring, same thing, I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but been exploring of like a top dressing it with clover or something like that, just as well to try and keep dampness in it. But
that helps.
Haven't done it yet, but I think I'm going to in the next grow.
Nice. Yeah, I think you'll like it. Ever since I switched to clover, and even I use barley straw as a mulch layer, it has helped me tremendously as far as making sure that medium doesn't dry out quickly. Cool. Okay, so what do you usually do for plant training?
For plant training, I don't really go too deep into plant training. I guess I when I'm running photos, obviously I top, trying to get like as wide a canopy as I possibly can. And obviously, and I do LSD and tie branches down to try and create as many top sites or even canopy with multiple top sites as I can. And then for my autos, same thing, just LST, just tying them down, trying to get it to grow equally throughout and as many top site colas as I can get, right? But I don't go too crazy. For the most part, I tend to let them do what they're going to do, or even somewhat be the structure they're going to be. And if I top it a few times to create some more bud sites, then so be it. But yeah, I generally let them go and yeah, top them a few times and LSD. That's it.
Got it. So you are trying to maintain that even canopy. Have you ever used a trellis netting and done like the scrog technique or anything like that? Or
I have used trellis netting in the past. Yeah. I don't currently have one now because my trellis net, I had it cut down to my 4x4, so it wouldn't stretch out to my 5x5. But and right now it's just autos, so I didn't need to use it. But I'll get back into it. My next one, I'm going to be moving to photos again, and hopefully have 5 or 6 of them in the 8x4 that I should be receiving soon. And my goal in that one is to get the most even widespread canopies as I can to try and fill up that tent with 5 or 6 plants in an 8x4. So we'll see what we can do and see if we can fill it up and get as many top sites as possible. So that is my goal for the next grow, is to try and master the canopy.
Nice. Are you going to be recording footage and putting it onto your channel?
For sure, yeah.
Nice. Cool. I'll definitely link Zerp 84's channel down in the description section below so you guys can check him out. Got a few more questions for you before we end this. So I have a lot of beginners that are listening to this podcast that are subscribers to my channel. And I like to ask all the guests, what advice do you have for somebody who's just starting growing for the first time?
Just chill and relax. Like there's so many tidbits of information all over the place, or what you should do, or how you can do this, or how you can do that. If you've got the main or the key things taken care of being like medium pH levels, humidity and temperature, I mean, no grow is going to go smooth for you. I don't think so. There's going to be issues with each grow. I would say. I mean, you can get through a grow with minimal issues, or you can be like, wow, that was a good grow. There was not too much happened there, but there's going to be issues. So just chill, take your time, read material that's gonna provide you with the information you need to solve the problems that you run into, and just be prepared. Yeah, because things are going to happen. You're going to have to react. And there's lots of people out there in this space to ask questions. That's what's so good about this space, is everybody is here for the same reason. And don't be scared to reach out, ask questions, because people will get back to you. And most people in this space have a good grasp of what they're doing, and will provide you with the information you need to get through your grows.
I think that's really good advice. Really good advice. Cool. So you already mentioned you have a YouTube channel, right? You're also on Instagram as well. Are there any other platforms that you're on that the listeners can find you on?
No, I'm just currently YouTube and Instagram. Very small following on YouTube, but I mean, I don't have the ability to pump out videos like a lot of the people in the space do, just because of work and my family life. But yeah, YouTube, Instagram. I have a little bit of a better following on Instagram and post a lot more pictures, simply because you can snap pictures pretty easily and just throw them online, right? But yeah, Instagram, YouTube. I am sponsored by Mars and TNB, which isn't a hard thing to do. So if you're new to the space and you're putting good content out there, like there's people around watching what you're doing, so get it out there.
Nice. I'll link your Instagram down in the description section below. Okay, so what do you have upcoming? You mentioned you're going upgrading a little bit to a 4x8, right? So you're going to need a couple more lights. What do you got upcoming?
Yeah, I'm hopefully having a tent show up here in the next couple of weeks from Mars. It's an 8x4. I don't know light-wise what I'm going to throw in there yet. I'm going to get it set up and kind of see how things play out, or like how they lay out in there with that structure, with the two lights that I currently have running. Yeah, and I'll be moving to photos this time with a couple different. I haven't quite selected what genetics I'm going to run yet. There's a few in my mind. I have too many seeds. I have a habit of buying seeds, so still haven't really picked what I want to do. I'm going to probably do 3 or 4 different strains. Yeah, it's coming, and all photos. And like I said, my main goal is to work on the canopy and try and maximize the bud sites I get out of these 5 or 6 plants that I choose to grow. And I'll be documenting that one as well. So yeah, hopefully you guys can check that out.
Sounds exciting. I will definitely be tuned into that. Any final words? Anything before we end this?
I really appreciate you having me on here, man. When you reached out to me, I was surprised, because I've looked up to you and like you said, DM'd you for advice in the past. So I appreciate you having me on here. For people growing or new to the space, just enjoy it. Like it's fun. I find the process of growing itself so therapeutic. It's enjoy it all. Even the mistakes and the issues are better teaching points than probably what you're going to find out of a book, because you're learning from somebody else's experience. When you do it yourself and master what you've got going on, or fix one of your issues, it's so rewarding. So and you'll probably never make the same mistake again. So just chill, relax, and have fun with it.
It's a great way to end it. Zerp, thank you so much for coming on to my channel, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, buddy.